Hi everyone, so this is our last video for chapter 9. So we've been looking at the genetic makeup of populations, how mutations can impact the alleles in a population, how those allele frequencies can change, and how all of this can contribute to natural selection and eventually the development of new species. So up until this point, we've been focusing on, animals and plants, humans, bigger animals, bigger organisms, and how they can evolve. In this short video, we're going to be going through how pathogens can evolve. So we're going to go back and look at our little microscopic bacteria and our viruses, which can also undergo natural selection and evolution as well. So we're going to look at bacteria. So bacteria can also undergo natural selection. So they have genetic material that can mutate, and these can be advantageous and they can be selected for and they can evolve. So one of the prime examples of this happening is bacterial resistance to antibiotics. So this is a massive problem at the moment. And you probably heard about it. This is when bacteria are becoming resistant to antibiotics, and this is all through natural selection. So what happens here is that inappropriate use of antibiotics, so things like using them when you're not supposed to or not using them for the time period you're supposed to, can allow bacteria to not completely die from these antibiotics, which means that a couple of bacteria that have resistance to the antibiotic are still alive. And because they're probably the only bacteria that have survived this attack, they're the ones that get to survive and reproduce, which means we have more bacteria that are becoming resistant to those antibiotics. So like you can see here, we've got natural variation in our population, just as we always do. So we will have bacteria that are, susceptible to the antibiotic, and we'll also have a couple of bacteria just due to random mutations and things like that that might be a little bit more resistant to the antibiotic. So what's going to happen is that selection pressure is going to be introduced. The selection pressure is, of course, the antibiotic. And when that's introduced, the ones that are, not as fit are going to die. And the ones that have the selective advantage are going to live. And because they're the ones that are going to live, they are also the ones that are going to reproduce, which means that when they reproduce, which is the heritability part, they are going to pass down that genetic makeup into other bacteria. Well, not pass down, they're going to do binary fission, but it's going to go to other bacteria, and then those bacteria are going to be resistant to those antibiotics as well, and then that further spreads the alleles. So bacteria can evolve just like we can. This is obviously a massive issue because scientists are rapidly, running out of antibiotics that they can use because bacteria are becoming increasingly resistant to them because of the misuse of antibiotics. So it's really important that we only use antibiotics when we really, really need to, because we are creating these superbugs that eventually we're not going to be able to treat because we don't have the treatments for them yet. So right now what we're doing is we are using multiple antibiotics that target lots of different components of the pathogen, but eventually they're probably going to evolve to resist that as well. So this is a massive public health issue that's happening at the moment. Viruses can also evolve as well. So just like bacteria, viruses are also constantly changing, and their goal is to become more virulent and resistant. So that means basically they want to be able to spread to people more quickly and more easily, because that's what helps them to survive. So whatever phenotype allows them to do that, that's going to help them to survive. So that's how viruses actually always evade the immune system, because viral surface antigens are always changing, and we know that our immune system recognizes those antigens. Because they're always changing, that means that we can't develop memory towards them. And that makes it really difficult to develop vaccinations for them, because vaccinations are trying to evoke memory. But if the antigens are consistently changing, we can't have memory to those antigens. So this is also a massive issue as well. This is how we get things like, swine flu and the pandemic and things like that. So there's two main processes in which viruses can evolve. So they're antigenic drift and antigenic shift. So antigenic drift is the small gradual changes to the virus's genetic material that code for the surface antigens. So think of the word drift, you're kind of just drifting along. So this is a really slow process. So it's slow and gradual, and it's just the natural mutations that will occur in the genetic makeup of that virus, which changes those surface antigens. And that's what makes it really difficult to develop memory towards them. We also have something called antigenic shift. So this is a lot more sudden and a lot more significant. So this is when there is a sudden and significant change to the genes that code for surface antigens. So it's not just small accumulative changes, it's something really big that happens and changes. So this often occurs due to something called viral recombination. And this is when there's multiple viruses infecting the same host and they can form a completely new virus. So this is how things like coronavirus, that's how we think it actually happened. We think that two different viruses infected someone or something at the same time, and they created this completely new strain of virus. So that's how viruses can evolve, either small gradual changes or really sudden ones due to viral recombination. So just like animals and plants, our little microbes can also evolve too. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, please bring them to class and I will see you there.